Hello, everyone. Steve Anderson here with the product management team for SMAX and AMX. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today, we are going to do a session on the new release, SMAX and AMX 24.4, go through the new features. This is our first time using Teams for this, so hopefully you're familiar with the interface and it'll work out okay. We have enabled the Q&A panel, so please go ahead and use that. All right, so today's agenda, just a couple housekeeping topics like the Q&A panel, and then we'll go through the release updates, and then we'll have Q&A. We will try to stop as we go along, look at the Q&A panel, so if you have a question relevant to the current topic that we're presenting, if you can get it in quick enough, we'll try to cover it then. Otherwise, if we have some time at the end, we'll circle back and try to answer the questions that you have. Housekeeping. So we are changing the name of the user group to the Service Management User Group, or SMUG. Thanks, Dean, for that name. It's the same as you remember from attending other of our user group sessions for SMAX, just with a slightly different name. Still pointing to the SMAX user group community page at the moment with the tiny URL, tiny CC URL. And we're switching to a monthly cadence on these calls. So the next session will be November 13th and December 11th, where we're planning on doing deep dive into some of the features that we have introduced with 24.4. So one thing you can let us know through the Q&A panel is what topics you would like to see us do deep dive sessions on. Just in case you need to be reminded what the release readiness webinars are for, that's this one, and moving into the release updates. So we have lots of updates. I'm not going to read through everything on this slide because, well, this is just a small summary of everything that's in the release, and we'll go into details on most, if not all of these in the detailed slides. All right. So with that, quarterly release cycle. That's right. So just a reminder that we have a quarterly release cycle for SMAX, including AMX, and the even number releases like 24.4 are require the full update process. So these have more features. As you'll see, this is a longer session today. We have more topics to cover. So these are your larger releases with the full update process. The odd number releases are smaller, mostly contain defect fixes and some smaller enhancements, and are delivered with the same mechanism that we use for patches. And they do replace the patch sequence. So, but that's not as relevant to this release readiness webinar because this is 20.24.4. So is the full release, even number release. And we do provide a year hop upgrade from 23.4 to 24.4 if you're not on our SaaS and are managing your own environment. And if you are on OpenText Public Cloud, just a reminder that you can go to see the notifications form in PCS support to see when your tenants will be updated. Anything else on this slide, Dean, that I should say?
No, not at all. That covers everything.
Great. All right. With that, I will go ahead, and our first topic is going to be asset management, and I'll hand off to Ming for that section.
Okay, can you see my screen?
I see your screen and I hear you. You are good to go.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone. This is me from the product management team. So in the next few minutes, I will give you a brief introduction around what's coming next on the asset management part. So So first, the key improvement in this release is around the enterprise asset management. So as you know that we introduced the enterprise asset management since last year, and before this release, well, we already have a quite good foundation for the inventory management for enterprise asset. And in this 24.4 release, we also start to support the capability to allow the asset management agent to receive enterprise asset from different channels. As you can see, we mentioned in the slides, like the procurement management, native SANCON homepage, or all the stockroom management. You have a different approaches to receive enterprise asset, and meanwhile, we also support the reservation for those enterprise assets from either the SANCON homepage or the reservation tab of the request records. And of course, for both manual reservation and automatic reservation are supported. So until now, with this receiving enterprise receiving and the enterprise asset reservation supported in the 24.4, we actually streamlined the request to fulfillment process for enterprise asset. And it will ensure that the enterprise asset record or requests can be managed effectively, and those requested assets can be delivered to appropriate users or departments. So in this screen, I just attached one sample about the automatic reservation because, as you know previously, we allow customers to define business rule for the automatic reservation, and then in the request task plan, you can define a auto reservation task for this during the fulfillment process. And by leveraging this now, we also expand this capability to the enterprise asset as well. So that's just one sample for this auto reservation for enterprise asset. And the next improvement around the enterprise asset management is about batch management, especially for the consumables. So as you know, in enterprise asset, out of the box, actually we introduced the three type of the process type for the enterprise asset, that is stationary, full life cycle, and the consumables. And we understood especially for consumable type of the enterprise asset, sometimes we do need to manage those bunch of the consumable assets together instead of manage them individually one by one. So therefore, we introduce the batch option to both asset models for enterprise asset and enterprise asset records itself. So here in the current screen, we just provided two samples. Is how you can define the batch option for the enterprise asset model, and then when you creating a new enterprise asset record, once you choose the process type as the consumables, you can define whether you want to manage this enterprise asset as a batch or not, and if you want to manage it as a batch, you can also define the quantity and the corresponding unit of measure for this batch option. And besides the inventory management for this consumables enterprise asset, we also support the bulk receiving, so which means during the receiving process for those enterprise asset, especially for the consumables enterprise asset, we allow the customer or system actually to create a single asset record instead of multiple individual consumable enterprise asset to optimize this inventory management. So that's a main improvement we introduced for the consumables in the 24.4 release. And in the next 2 pages, I will mainly cover the improvement we have done in the software asset management, in the asset management part. The first one is quite important capability we introduced in our SAM is a organization compliance report. So if you are familiar with the SAM modules in the SMAX, we know that previously before the 24.4, we allow customer to define the compliance report by different product per each vendors, but we don't have a capability to generate different compliance report based on the location or cost center. However, we understood that it's a very common requirement that the software asset manager, they want to generate the compliance report based on their organization scope, especially when they purchase their license per their organization, either by location or by cost center or other organization level defined by customers themselves. So in such, based on that fact, we introduced this organization compliance report in the 24.4. And by leveraging this capability, this will ensure that our customers' organization can adhere to software license laws and regulations, not only in the global level, also in a more detailed or no graduality levels compliance report. And and also by assessing the current software usage, this report can also help into optimizing the license allocation, preventing both under licensing and over license use cases. So now I will try to give you a quick demo to show you what it looks like in our lab system. And here is our lab system for the 24.4. So I already entered into the software asset management modules. So before we generate the a location-based or cost center-based compliance report, of course, we need to define how we would like to show those compliance report per each organization. So therefore, we need to go to the configuration organization compliance scopes in the configuration part first. Yeah. So as you can see now, we already predefined several scopes here by the location. Of course, you can define your own compliance scope, either by location, by cost center, or by the customer criteria. If some of customers, they do define their own organization through the non-out-of-box custom criteria. And in the out-of-box environment, we will show all the existing location and cost center defined in the SMAX system, and we're showing in the tree view. And here we already predefined three compliance scope by location. Those are Canada, China, and France. And meanwhile we also support the bulk crate scopes by location and by cost center. For example, if I don't want to create this compliance scope one by one, I can choose this option to quickly create multiple compliance scopes. So here, when I click this option, I enter in this interface, and all the system created location will be showed here. And if I don't want to create all the compliance scope, I can also try to get a filter. For example, if I want to get the list of the location, which is location type is city, and then all the city all the cities defined in the location will be displayed here. And if I can either choose any anyone record or all of the record and quickly to create the compliance scope for those locations. So that's a easy that's another approach, or we offer it to our customer to quickly create multiple compliance scope. So that's a definition. And of course, in order to generate the compliance scope, you also needed to assign your license to a different organization if you want to track those license usage by different location or call center. I will not show in this demo due to the time. But I want to show you the compliance result here. So as you remember here, we define the 3 compliance scope by location. And then in the compliance dashboard, as you can see, so firstly, it will show as in the global view. So, but if you click this button, in the global view, you got a list of the vendor and the corresponding products. You can see the global levels compliance report, and if you have already defined the compliance scope by the location, as you can see here, now we have Canada-based compliance report, China-based and France-based compliance report. If I drill down to each compliance scope, that is each location-based compliance report will be displayed here accordingly. And that's a very overview information. And if I drill down to another view, for example, if I click to the product compliance, and that's provide another angles, a view from another angles to show you what's the compliance result by each product, by each vendor, and you can even drill down to each product, and all the compliance scope defined in the configuration will be displayed here. And what's the compliance status will also be showed here, and estimated cost and calculation, the date and time will also be displayed here. And meanwhile, if I also want to understand what's the license usage, I will also offer licensing pool here to show you what's the existing license usage related to one specific product. So here we take the VMware workstation as a sample. So in the customer's environment, we have a VMware workstation version 17 and 16. And in such case, we also show all the corresponding license numbers based on the global and other compliance scopes we defined previously, like Canada, China, and France. And here lists the number, like how many licenses have been purchased per each location, and what kind of license have been upgraded to higher version, and what kind of license upgraded from the lower version, and the total effective points per each location, and consume the point per each location, and what's the balance. So all the details will be displayed here. So like a licensing pool for this specific product, and by assessing this software usage information, so it will help our customer to optimize the license allocation, so preventing the both under licensing and over licensing case. So that's a demo part for this organization compliance report capability introduced in the 24.4. Okay, and the next is another out-of-box content we built up for SAM in the 24.4 is Oracle DB support IBM virtualization technology. Actually, previously, we already support this IBM IBM virtualization technology. We leveraging the Oracle licensing management service, the LMS, to help customers to make the most of their Oracle investment in an effective and compliant manner. So in our SAM solution, we support our customer to create compliance report based on the license consumption data managed by the Oracle LMS. So previously, we support Oracle database licensing in a software partitioned environment, such as VMware virtualization technology. And starting from the 24.4, we expanded its capability to the hard partitioned environment as well, such as IBM LPAR virtualization technology can also be supported through this license rule. So here is also one of the out-of-box content and corresponding sample data we imported in our system of the 24.4 for SAM. So okay, that's all the key improvement we introduced in the 24.4 for SAM. And is there any question so far?
There's one question in the Q&A panel, but let's go ahead and continue on to make sure we give Dean enough time at the end of the session.
Okay, yeah.
You can answer that offline during my section.
And next part is service portal improvement. And in the 24.4, we also spend some time to continue to improve the service portal. The first one is a very common requirement received from many customers about a copy request. So this now in the 24.4 for both mixed mode customer and the SMAX customers, this function is available in the request details page. And now customer can click this copy request button to create request based on existing request. For example, you can request a new piece of equipment several times and generating multiple individual requests quickly from a single initial request. So that's a very efficient approach for our customer to generate the multiple similar requests. That's a copy request is quite easy to understand. Another one is also a very popular ideas from the customers is about configurable mark as solved in the support request. So previously, in the support request in the service portal, we provide a capability to allow the requester to mark this support request as solved. And if you click this button, OK, in this mark and solved message box, this support request will be abandoned automatically because it means this support request have been resolved and there no further IT agent involvement is required. But in some cases, although customer think it's quite useful capability, but sometimes mark as solved. Naming itself is sometimes a little bit hard to understand for the end user. Therefore, they would like to change the name of this mark and resolve the button, solved button in the support request. In such case, we make this option in the support request configurable. So customer can define whether they want to show this action by default, and if they want to change the name of this mark and solved action, and they can leverage the existing custom action to provide a similar capability but with a different name in the support request ticket. So that's a main capability about this configurable mark and solved in support request. And beside those two key improvements in source portal, we also introduce other improvements like accessibility improvements. This release will bring a lot of new accessibility improvements to service portal. So feel free to check the release notes to get more details about what have been improved in this release. Okay, that's all the part about the service portal and the asset management part. And I will hand over to Steve for the service management improvement. Steve?
Great. Thank you, Ming. You have a number of questions to look at. We're not going to take them live just in the interest of time. So I will go ahead and move on, but we'll try to answer those in the Q&A panel. Thanks for the engagement and asking questions. All right, moving on to service management. So our first service management feature is the consolidated inbox, or if you come from service manager land like I do, the to-do queue is what I remember this being called in service manager. So we've built out a new page in the agent interface to show a combined view of an agent's work. So that's all of the records that are assigned to them or their groups. You can see a screenshot of it here. It's located in kind of the main dashboard area. So where you have dashboard, tasks, and approvals, there's a new inbox link that you can click on. An agent can set this to be their default landing page if they would like, through the standard mechanism, just like they can do any of these pages, or any page really. And it'll show a standard, fully functional grid like they're used to working in anywhere in SMAX, incident list, request list, etc. It has the preview panel that they can use to go ahead and edit the records in place. Sorting works across the records. You can do some filtering as well. So this is a federated view of the data. We're not replicating any of the data, so that's where it's a bit different from the marketplace inbox that's consolidated inbox type capability that's been available for a while, and also different from what we did in Service Manager. Not really relevant, but my history. So the data is federated real time, so it's always up to date. It's never going to be out of date. We have provided default mappings from requests, incidents, changes, problems, and tasks. So that's kind of what we expect to be the most commonly used record types for the inbox. But it is a configurable feature, so you can decide which of those you want to have included in the inbox. You can add additional record types to the inbox as well, up to a total of 10. You can manage which fields appear as part of the inbox in Studio. So there's a configuration section there where you can go ahead and add additional fields to the inbox you want. So if you have custom fields in your various modules and you want those to appear in the inbox, you can configure that. And of course, you can configure the mapping of what field from the various record types should be used to display in the column in the inbox. So configurable to allow you to show the data that's most relevant to your users based on your implementation of the modules. And you can configure what shows up in the inbox in terms of record types to be only the ones that you think are relevant to your agents as they're working in this view. So hopefully that will make your agents more productive, especially the ones that work across multiple modules and don't want to be flipping around to different pages to see what they need to be paying attention to and working on. All right. We've also added the guided modeling widget from UCMDB into the topology widget of SMAX, so you can see it there. So this allows you to create topologies, which topologies are always stored in UCMDB with native SACM. So you can be within the SMAX UI, you can use the embedded widget to build out a topology using the guided modeling capability, using the model templates to help guide in the creation of the CI topologies. And we've provided a best practice modeling template for SMAX Business Services as a starting point, but of course you can use the full feature to build it out as much as you want. All right. Our next section is around HR service management. So we've spent a good amount of time in this release working on expanding our HR service management content. So we've had HR service management capabilities for quite a while now, but we wanted to do a refresh of it and build it out to be a more complete best practice catalog and integration offerings. So previously we just had a single top-level HR category. We've expanded that out. As you can see in the screenshot, we have 6 top-level categories, 18 new service definitions, 58 new HR support offerings. So lots of catalog content that you can leverage and build off of there. We've also created a dedicated HR dashboard, HR reporting dashboard with a number of reports specific for HR service management. And we've built some Aviator AI-enriched workflow capabilities for HR service management as well. So specifically around privacy analysis. So leveraging Aviator, it will, when an HR request is created, it will analyze the incoming request, the text in the request, and look for what could be potentially private information, such as addresses, phone numbers, salary, credit card numbers, medical details, passwords. So it scans through the natural language text. It flags if it thinks there could be any sensitive private information in that text, and it will go ahead and tag the request if it finds any of that, and it will put it into a restricted view using data domains so that only certain people can see that. So you could have a review process to check and make sure that whether we correctly flagged it and remove that information or handle it as your standard policies dictate. For anything that, I mean, some of the information may be necessary, we just want to make sure that it could be flagged and protected and show you some of what's possible with Aviator. We've also expanded our SuccessFactors integration. So with the integration, you can access any of the information, or you can access information from the employee file directly from the service portal. So we have a built-in integration scenario and a catalog offering that allows the end user to ask questions related to their employee file information. As you can see in the screenshot here, we're asking for the employee ID, and then we submit the request. We get the request back with the resolution, and it provides the information coming from SuccessFactors. So if you need your employee ID and you don't remember it, you could, and you don't want to go into SuccessFactors, you could just ask Aviator, in this case here, hey, what's my employee ID? And it'll spit it back out to you. We've also built in some of that new catalog content, we've built in approval flows and fulfillment flows as starting points for how some of these service requests could be approved and fulfilled. So you can look at the new content for that. We've also worked on an employee onboarding bundle I'm not going to go through this whole slide in this session. Maybe this is one that you'll request a deep dive on if you're interested in it, but too much here for the time we have today. But we have built out a new employee onboarding bundle made up of both HR and IT-related tasks. So you can take a look at that. And we've gone ahead and expanded out the HR service management documentation content. So providing details on the best practices, details of the catalog. So if this is an area that's interesting to you, you can look in a fresh tenant or, of course, look at the documentation. All right. Moving on to Studio and Platform. All right. Configurable entity link picker display fields. So some of the feedback we got is that often when you have an entity link dropdown, you can have the information that you get by default in the dropdown is not sufficient to uniquely identify a record. So probably the easiest one to explain, but far from the only case, is person records. So if I do a dropdown of people, it's very possible that there are 2 Steve Andersons at OpenText, and there are. I've had 8 Steve Andersons at a company I was working at one point. So if somebody wanted to assign a ticket to me and all they have is the name, they're likely to send it to one of the 7 other Steve Andersons at the company. So what we want to be able to do is allow you to configure the entity link dropdowns to include additional information. So in this example, so you can see the configuration panel on the top right here. So we have the new UI components and specifically the record dropdown. You can see this kind of a new area. We'll likely be expanding this in the future. Roadmap disclaimers apply, of course. But for the record dropdown, the avatar name and VIP identifier are the ones that we've provided out of box. Those you can't change or remove, at least at this point. And then I've gone ahead and added employee ID and email. And then you see in the dropdown for reported by, you can see these additional names. So that's the icon, the name, and now you can see the employee ID and the email address. So whatever information you have in a record type that is useful in identifying it uniquely, you can go ahead and add as part of this configuration, and then it will show up in the dropdowns on the agent side only at this point. And then in terms of the record or the field types that we support, so currently we're supporting small text, enum, and email type fields as ones that can be shown in the dropdown. Next feature is record level access control based on person or group membership. So this is a new way to control which records an agent sees when they're in the agent interface. So you can configure access to view the records based on information from that record itself. So based on the entity link associations to person or group records. So you can see down here, I'm configuring incident, and we have the new access control section here. Of course, I have to enable it. So this is disabled by default. You enable it only if you would like to. And then you can specify fields, I'll just call them fields from the incident table that you want to use to control who is able to view the records, in this case, in incident. So what I'm saying here is that any members of the group in the assignment group field or the owner, the person in the owner field, will be able to view the incidents. So if you want to kind of restrict what people see based on what they're, how they're associated to the record, this is the capability to use. So record level access control is what you want to use for that kind of thing. So I think a couple of the examples I said would be you could say that only the owner of a device is able to view it, or that only members of the assignment group assigned to the request and the assignee would be able to view it. So this capability is available for most out-of-box record types. There are a few where it doesn't make sense that we've excluded in the documentation for that list, but I don't think it'll be an issue. Raise it up if there's one in there that you think we should allow it on. And then it's available for any new record types that you create. It's disabled by default, of course, so you're not going to see a change in behavior due to this feature until you configure it. And then there are some people in the organization that probably need to be able to see all the records regardless of how you've set up the RLAC controls. So tenant admins, of course, bypass this. And then there's also a new permission in the role that you can use called access control override. And any user that has that permission is going to bypass the access control logic and be able to see all the records. So that's RLAC, record level access control. It looks like there are a lot of questions coming in. That's great. Hopefully some of them are getting answered while I'm talking along. If not, I'll circle back and look at them at the end. All right. Studio improvement around suggested value business rules. So we've had the suggested value business rules for entity link dropdowns for forever, maybe for a very long time at least. I forget when we introduced things, but we haven't been able to apply that same logic on many-to-many tables. So if I'm adding a record to a many-to-many table, we couldn't filter what the user could see. So with this release, we've gone ahead and kind of brought those two areas into alignment. So there's a new business rule type. You can see the preview of it there. So define suggested values for relationship type. So that's the name of the many-to-many field with a title, and then a filter to control which records you see. So I'm guessing if those of you who do business rule configuration have dealt with suggested value business rules, most likely this will be very familiar to you. It just is now available on the many-to-many fields in addition to the entity link dropdowns. And then we have a productivity improvement around business rules as well. So before this release, there were some business rule types or templates that only supported a single field. So if you wanted to hide fields, if you wanted to disable fields, you had to create a rule for each field you wanted to do. We had some business rule types that supported multiple fields. I think with the set field, for example, you could specify multiple fields. So we're trying to bring that all into alignment. So we've created a kind of replaced the older single field business rule templates with these multiple field rules. So you can now disable multiple fields at once, hide multiple actions, hide multiple fields. So several of these business rule types have been updated. You can kind of see some of them in this screenshot here, and then how it looks here. So if you wanted to hide multiple fields, you just create that one rule, and then you specify each of the fields that you want to hide. So should be a little bit more efficient for you as you're going through and doing your configuration work. We have not updated, and we will not update any of the existing business rules in your tenant. So you'll have to decide whether you want to go through and maybe consolidate down where you're doing some of this with multiple rules into a single rule, or just as you're doing new configuration work, do it then. That will be up to you. All right. We have two areas of task improvements, both of which I'm pretty excited about. So one is the ability to lock down task plans. So you can now use the restrict and allow editing of fields or disable fields business rule types to and specify the task plan to lock it so it cannot be edited. So for example, if you defined a task plan and you don't want it changed while you're in the approval phase, you can use a business rule to lock it. Or you can even say, you know what, as I go into implementation, I don't want the task plan changed, and you can lock it down. So the task plan itself can't be modified, so you can't change the flow. However, the tasks themselves are, of course, still accessible. You can view the details of the tasks. You can work the tasks as normal, either through the parent record or through the task dashboard. Either way, the tasks themselves remain accessible. This is really control of the task plan level. You could use existing capabilities to control who can modify the task, of course, but this allows you to control whether the plan itself can be edited. And we have provided an override ability, so there is a permission to edit locked tasks plans, so you can have somebody with higher level authority in your organization who maybe can fix things if they, but the average user would not be able to modify it. That way it's under better control, and fewer people will be messing with things. And then I've had a lot of conversations with probably some of you in this call around the task dashboard capability and the desire to use it more as just a standard grid view into the tasks in the system, all tasks in the system. And it was originally envisioned as a task dashboard, so the tasks for the current user, but getting a lot of feedback that people wanted to be more than that. So what we've done with this release is removed some hard-coded filters that were coded into the back end based on the original design that was envisioned for that area. So now we've removed those hard-coded filters, and if you have the ability to view all task role permission, then you will truly see all tasks, excluding what you've done with data domains or other restrictions, but you would be, as a user, able to access all the tasks. You can still filter to show only the ones that are assigned to you or your groups, of course, but if you need to see the broader set, you'd be able to do that through the task dashboard now. All right. That is the service management and studio and platform sections. I will go ahead and hand it over to Dean to cover integrations.
All right, thank you, Steve. I should be hopefully sharing my screen now, so everyone can see what I'm presenting. So I'm going to cover off integrations first. Obviously, we've mentioned a couple of integrations already. But let's go through and show you some of the other updates that we've prepared. Okay, so we've done some general Integration Studio improvements to begin with. So the first, we've added a new common action, a sleep function. So it allows you to, during the pause, a scenario, up to 60 minutes. So this allows, if you've got some kind of repeating job or something, to have it sit and wait for a defined period. We've also made some improvements to the execution history views. So now there's an improved JSON viewer, so you can see the details a lot better in the preview of the of the JSON within an execution history to be able to read it better. We've also added a delete function as well, so you can obviously select a row, what have you, and delete them if you need to manually. And we've also defined a new default role for integration administration. So you now no longer need to be a tenant admin to do Integration Studio work. There's a new integration administration role which can be utilized, and then just that will cover you to be able to access Integration Studio and not require additional tenant admin privileges. All right. Then in regards to content and content updates, we've got a new connector for Universal CMDB. So this now allows additional bulk APIs for create, update, and delete CIs. We've also created 2 new scenario templates as well. So there's our new scenario template for inbound email. So as part of our longer term plans to remove the reliance on things like on-premise bridge agent for, should we say, some SaaS services like Microsoft 365, or utilizing Connect It for inbound email. We're extending our capability to accommodate Microsoft 365. This supports creation of tickets with the attachments as well. And you can do that all now within Integration Studio. We do plan to expand that over time, so look for that in further release readinesses over the next year, or the next few months, 6 months. We've also extended and improved our existing case exchange template for service management, so SMAX to SMAX, which includes support for rich text comments and inline images within those as well. So they can be handled a lot better as part of this. All right. And then additional improvements for the dynamic script library. We've got 2 new objects in the expression editor. So current integration is now an option, and then that now exposes the integration user details, either the ID, the UPN, but also the name or the ID of the integration itself. And then we've also added the object for current scenario as well. So you can get at the label, the name, the ID, or the webhook URL associated with the current scenario. Maybe if you want to drive some decisions and different approaches based on those attributes. And then finally, we've added a new function which returns, so the get scenario listener URL, which returns the webhook URL for the listener associated with your scenario. Obviously, the scenario must belong to the same integration where the function is being used. You can't use it for other integrations that you have, but should make it a bit more powerful in building out some of the workflows you might want to do with an integration and how you handle the data. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of an insight in some of those improvements. And then finally, we wanted to highlight about our new OpenText Extended ECM integration. This is part of our overall improvement for HR service management that Steve talked about earlier. We have now added the Extended ECM widget to appear in the Related Documents tab. Obviously, specifically, the work was done as part of our improvements for HR service management, for secure and private, sensitive employee documents, but it supports all record types. So you've got the broader depth that you can apply this to, and you also have the option to hide the tab in business rules as well. So usual conditions can be applied maybe for specific users or specific reasons or even specific record types. And this is really just wanted to highlight this, but obviously we already have a similar core content integration which we released in a previous version. So this is very much the same functionality, just for the different OpenText content product. All right. Okay, so that was just a brief overview of some of the improvements we made, some significant improvements we made for integrations. We'll probably do a little bit more of a deep dive in one of the upcoming sessions related to that. But I thought we'd jump to mobile now. And something that I know a lot of people have been waiting for, and that is support for mobile application management or mobile development management, MDM, MAM, and supporting MS Intune, which seems to be the most common of all our customers and asks that we get for. So what we have delivered, there's a new mobile app which will be available on iOS. Android is coming soon. Look for that in a future release readiness webinar. But as part of this work, it supports all the standard MS Intune settings. So some of the configuration settings, some of the restrictions that you want to put in place about sharing data. And I've got a couple of demos to go through that in a moment. And just so obviously you're aware, because it is a separate mobile app, we will be keeping in sync with our standard mobile app development. So now obviously we're, should we say, managing multiple apps, but they will always be consistent. So whenever we develop something for the non-Intune version, it will also be developed for the Intune version at the same time. All right. And as I mentioned, Android is coming soon. But those that know me like a good demo, I'm going to run a couple of demos just to kind of give you a little bit of a visibility of the functionality. So bear with me 1 second so I get this set up. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so the first demo that we're going to run is basically enforcing the Intune app. So you can, as a customer, as an admin, go into the mobile application settings, which are under application settings. And you can see now there's an option for enabling or enforcing the Intune version of the mobile app. So for the demo here, we're going to log in with the standard app. As you can see, we've logged in, not a problem, all good. So let's quickly log out. Let's force the Intune app to be enabled. Click save. And let's go and log in again. And you'll see that your users will then get a message to basically say, you need to use the Intune app. There we go. All right, because it's now being managed by your IT department. All right, nice and fairly straightforward there. Hopefully that gives you a good view of what we're doing. Okay, next feature that I wanted to cover off is that ability to enforce restrictions. So there's a lot of restrictions you can do in Intune. And any app that you develop, there's a standard set that you have to apply for. If when you go to do this, there's a setting that you would like us to control, let us know. We'll look at it as part of our future development plans. But if we go into the app settings and we'll look at the iOS policy here, we'll look at the properties and data protection, for example, one of those restrictions could be related to copy and paste. So whether you can copy and paste between restricted apps, or if there's a limit, is a character limit in place. So if we open the mobile app, we'll just quickly type some things in here. And obviously we're just doing this on the login, and we're typing 6 characters. We can see the restriction is set to 3. Let's paste that into a reminder. And as you can see, you're only limited to 3. So we actually give a response to let people know, as opposed to just showing the first 3 characters, which could be confusing for users. However, if we do it and you have a limit to 3, you can type that in paste that in without any issues. All right, good. Hopefully that gives an idea on that one. Next one that I wanted to talk about is about 2-factor authentication. So another feature that you can do with Intune is the ability to define things like a PIN code from an access perspective. So one of the things, we'll set that up right now. Let me scroll through to the various access requirements. So in here, you obviously have various different settings. A couple of those include setting a PIN or a user's PIN. You also have things like setting for Touch ID and Face ID, etc. And here you can see we've got the PIN set up. You have to enter the PIN before you access the application. All right, and that will take you through to the login portal at that point. Of course, if you set up single sign-on as part of that, that is something as well that you can do, so that the user will log in through Azure single sign-on. Okay, final one that I wanted to quickly show while we're doing this little whistle-stop tour of Intune is maybe you want to preset some values. So quite a common ask that I think we tend to get for customers is we've got a tenant ID. Typically with a mobile app, you need to pre-populate it. And with Intune, you can do that in the same way. So under the app settings, and here we'll go to configuration policies. We can look at the configuration and we can define some general configuration settings, including URL. So there's a particular value that you need to utilize for the mobile app, but you put the tenant value in there and that will be pre-populated in the mobile app. So when I go to log in, you can see the service portal URL is already defined there in the system. All right. Hopefully it gives you a nice introduction of what we're doing with Intune support. Okay, I was going to pause there just to have a quick check to see if there was any questions, but I'll check on the questions afterwards. I want to make sure we get through everything we wanted to cover today. So we'll move on to Aviator, and I'm going to talk about the features that we've done, which is specific for the SMAX AMX. Aviator is a broader ITOM or IT operations capability. So with each release, we are working on things across all the products. So sometimes we do for one product a bit more than others. But I wanted to do a brief highlight of some of the features today, because we're going to come back to this in one of the future user group sessions coming up later this year. So probably we'll look at it in our next session in November. But some big things and improvements that we've made. So the first big one is we've now updated the underlying conversational LLM to be running Llama 3.1. So this has a lot of huge improvements in terms of the quality of the way that our conversational LLM responds, but also in its understanding as well, in its natural language understanding of the queries that come in. In fact, the feature that Steve showed earlier with the AI-enriched workflow around PII data wasn't actually possible with the previous Llama 2. Llama 3 has allowed us to be able to extend and improve our AI-enriched workflows in that way. We've also done a fine-tune on the LLM as well. So now what we've done is that this is kind of like a phased approach we're doing here to help Aviator better understand our products, but also allow you to ask questions related to the products as well. So we've taken a snapshot of some of our product documentation, and we fine-tuned the Llama 3.1 model on that data. So now you could potentially ask questions about SMAX or OpsBridge or UCMDB, and it will give you some responses. The quality of those responses is obviously not to the same level as going through a RAG approach, where you have relevant documentation that's within the underlying vector database. But it does mean it has a better understanding of our products. And as I said, this is kind of a phased approach that we're taking to this, because we want to look at how the right way to push this to certainly help with implementations, maybe some of the help around helping people understand their workflows or the out-of-the-box workflows, but also maybe in the longer term for administrators as well in how they can utilize and configure the products. One of the big features we've got for SMAX is global search. So this is now making Aviator aware of any record entity in SMAX as part of any query that you do to Aviator. I'll demo that in a moment, because I think it's a better one to demo. We've also got a new Aviator AI enriched workflow business rule as well. So the previous business rule for AI enriched workflows allows you to do a query to Aviator with some input of data. With a new one, this allows you to do a search, which could be a global search or a VectorDB search, to pull back appropriate answers prior to it going to the large language model and providing an answer back to you. It does open up some interesting improvements around AI enriched workflows. We've also extended our multilingual support. So we've now added Greek, Swedish, Chinese and Norwegian, which are now supported in the product as well. In fact, we actually rolled this in prior to the 24.4 release, but it's officially supported as part of 24.4. Other languages, obviously, we have a set of languages already. Additional languages we're doing based on customer demand. So where customers are purchasing Aviator, we're looking to make sure we support the languages for those purchases. And also where we've built our AI enriched workflows, which we've demonstrated in previous SMAX user group sessions. So for those who joined us 2 months ago, we did a session where we went all around our AI enriched workflows and how to configure them. We've now made them available as part of our standard configuration for Aviator. So the models are in there, the business rules are in the system as well. There's a couple of settings you have to enable to do them, but they're there available, pre-configured, and then you can modify them as you do, just like any other business rule within SMAX today. All right, but we thought it's really good to help speed up the process of managing AI-enriched workflows and getting those in use. All right, I thought I'd quickly share the architecture diagram just to highlight a couple of things. So I've highlighted a few things here around our 24.4 updates. So here you can see that we're now using Llama 3.1, and we've moved this to not be reliant on AWS hardware. It's part of our longer term strategy of the way that we want to deliver Aviator, so we can be platform independent, which is something that's part of our longer term roadmap plans. We've also obviously mentioned our additional language models, and I've put the details below there as well, where you can see the languages that we currently support, and obviously they're available everywhere that Aviator is available. And I've also highlighted how the global search works here as well. So when a query comes in, whether I'm typing in the portal or through the widget, the Aviator service that runs at the tenant level will do the query against idle for as part of that global search, pull back appropriate results, and then that data set that's within the idle index will be passed through the loop through to the Aviator platform to pull back the final answer that comes back to the user. So the data is not stored in the Aviator platform at all. It's none of your SMAX artifacts or records are stored in, are only stored within your tenant. But the data that's identified as part of that search is passed across as part of that transaction, that query that goes through the loop, but not stored in the Aviator platform at all. All right. But that's kind of a better thing for us to demo, I think. So let's have a demo of that and how that works within the system. All right. So let's do a first demo. Now, what I wanted to do was kind of show you the comparison, should we say, of the setup. So first, we're going to do like we always do, and we're going to ask a question about connecting to a VPN by Global Protect. Right now, this would be the standard answer that we would get from our system, and you can see the answers that we've got there coming through. Not quite sure what's happened there. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay, so there's the answers that are coming through. Now, what we're going to do we're going to make a slight change with the global search. So we're going to update the portal settings model that's used for the query that are used by end users. And you can see here we've got semantic search, that's the vector database setting. But we can also now select global search as an option. And this gives us some additional configuration within the Aviator model where we can define the search threshold and how many references we're potentially going to pull back. There's also a record types for global search option that you can see there as well, with the ability to add objects. Out of the box, if you do not add any objects, all objects that are available will be visible. In this case, because this is the one for the portal, it's restricted to only the entities that are visible to the portal. So articles, knowledge, ideas, news, offerings, requests, and user questions, subject to obviously if you're utilizing those. So you cannot use this as a way to expose other objects to the portal through Aviator. It is only limited to the portal settings. But if you leave that as blank, then it will include all of them. But if you put any values in there, it will just do the global search on those specific record entities. All right, just want to make that clear. So empty, like we've got there, that's going to pull back and search across any global setting. All right, we've saved that. Let's have a look at that now on the portal and ask the same question again. So we're going to ask exactly the same question. Can it connect to a VPN by Global Protect? And now when we get the answer, we get obviously the ability to resolve it fairly easily. But in our references, we now are seeing some support requests as well. So we can see a support request, and in this case, it's a public request that's been put through the system. And as a user, we now have visibility of that with the details and how it was resolved if I wanted to view that public request. Likewise, that public request, if it's not in a complete stage, obviously I can follow that as well, or if I can go look at more details about that request, just as if you were looking at a public request in the system separately, or you can click back and carry on your conversation with Aviator. All right. Okay, so another feature that we can look at as well is because with that global search, we can now ask more questions in the portal, which could be related to me. So if I wanted to ask, for example, progress of one of my tickets, and in this case, I don't know the ticket ID. I'm just going to ask about generally about one of the tickets that's on a printing issue, and I post that. You will see the update that comes through is going to be specific to that's come through there. There's no update, but I can see my actual. Yep, I should be able to see my ticket if I click through and click on my ticket. Bear with me. But I can also do things like summarize the ticket details. So I could start to ask questions about a specific ticket and include that ticket details as part of it. That should, hopefully. There we go. All right. So now as an end user in a conversational way, I can start to ask questions about the tickets that I've got and potentially see them and even go to update them from within the Aviator search. Okay. The other thing is obviously you can do is further questions that you can ask. So we'll do one which relates to a HR offering here, for example. And you can see here we're picking up off data that's other items which are in the global search. And this example, we're pulling back from the Q&A module if you've got that enabled within your portal as well. So again, we're giving you that wider access to all the objects within the system, allowing you to utilize them with Aviator without having to do significantly extra configuration in the system. Again, here we have a look about ideas, about where the current status of that idea is as well. So you've got that flexibility through all of those. Again, that also applies to the agent widget as well. So if I go in here and I'm utilizing the widget and asking a question, I can ask questions about contract entities, for example. So here I'm going to ask a basic question, list all the contracts related to IBM that you can find, and it should come back. Bear with me. System running a little slow. There we go. Contracts that it's found, and again, this is data that's been indexed as part of the idle index within SMAX. So you get the references, you can click on them and go to the actual records and view them. But those details, it's all what's visible or Aviator is visible to is what you've configured for those record entities as part of your idle indexing in the system. All right. Now, another area where that obviously ends up being useful is in regards to things like suggested solutions as well. So here I am on a ticket. We've now extended the suggested solution function so that it will look at other related records or support requests or incidents that may be suitable to solve your query or provide a answer to that particular ticket. And again, you'll get them as part of the references that's in there. So you can see that and you can click the references to view those. And of course, you have the option there to copy the text that Aviator's put and then manually update the ticket as needed. And hopefully that gives you a good idea on that. In regards to the AI-enriched workflow, I wanted to quickly showcase as well the new search functionality and how that works in the system. So in this demo, hopefully when we get it running, we're going to show potentially providing preemptive answers for new tickets that come through. So the idea with this as a new AI-enriched workflow is when a new ticket arrives, we can give some suggested ideas to the agent on how to solve that ticket. So let's kind of walk this one through a little bit, but let's create a ticket. Obviously, we're not going to do it in the portal. We're just going to quickly create a ticket from the agent side. Just fill out obviously the details to get that ticket created. And then at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to showcase the ability for how you can get Aviator to utilize that search in the background to populate a field for us. So I'm just going to copy that into the title. There we go. Put requested bind. Then we'll save and edit. Okay. Put the domain user. That'll do. Okay. Yeah, we don't need to just treat it as a reported issue in the offering. Okay, that should be enough for us to save it. Okay, so you can see we've put some basic information into the request. But what we did is in this example of a new potential new AI-enriched workflow that you could utilize is we've added an additional custom field onto the request form that we're going to populate. So rather than just doing the suggested solutions, find more solutions type feature or providing that within the Aviator chat, what we're going to do is we're going to actually copy the information and give the agent the ability to look at a number of different suggested solutions that they could utilize as part of this. So if we just scroll back up, we can see we've got things like the knowledge articles there, but maybe they weren't suitable. So let me just refresh screen. And I want to show more. There we go. Okay, so we called it quick fix just as an example. But what we've done is we've pulled some data. So we built an AI-enriched workflow that's pulling data from other record entities. So in this example, it's given us, looked at reference cases and technical documents. It's picked up some details from a particular record entity. So in this case, a particular ticket that could be utilized as a potential solution candidate. But it's also identified one from a record, from a knowledge article as well. So it's another way in how you could utilize those AI-enriched workflows to do improvements in overall productivity, help your agents do more with less. So that kind of covers what I want to do about the new release, but I did want to utilize this just as a little highlight and get you a taster for something that we're going to plan in February. All right, so because we've had a lot of interest in how people can utilize these AI-enriched workflows, not just the ones that we've demoed out of the box, but potentially building your own and having a go at that capability, we have created, we're going to have a hackathon type event as part of our SMUG, our Service Management User Group. We're going to do this in February. We'll share more details close to the time. But if you're interested, let us know. We'll put you on a notification list around this. But we'll share more details about this in one of the upcoming user groups later this year. All right. Okay. And with that, we'll go to our open Q&A. Steve, I think I've seen there's quite a few questions that appeared in the Q&A panel, so I'll go and have
I'm getting a lot of
those.
questions, which is great. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Sorry if I talked over you there, Dean, but I was just excited that we were getting people interested in the release.
That's good.
So I think we've tried to answer most of them. There was a couple questions around the new business rule templates for multiple fields, and I just want to say again that once you've created your tenant and start configuring it, those business rules are yours. We're not going to touch those because we don't want to break your system. So the old single field business rules still are there. They still work fine. We actually still have them in the out-of-box system. We haven't taken the time to convert ours either yet. So they're still there working, and you just have to decide if you want to take the time to convert them from single field rules to the multi-field rules. It's fully up to you. They're still there and work and be supported for forever. We just hid those templates so when you're creating new business rules, you won't get to choose the single field option anymore because it just makes the user interface of selecting which business rule type you want a little more busy, which I wanted it to be cleaner. Any other questions that you want to try to answer live, Dean?
Yeah, sure, not a problem, Steve. There's a couple of questions related to what we just talked about on Aviator. I'll quickly cover those. So there's a couple of questions about the hackathon that we're going to do. We're going to do it. It's going to be open to all, so you don't need to be an existing Aviator customer. We'll absolutely welcome everyone to have a go and get their hands on with Aviator. But we'll announce the details as part of the user group. But yeah, whether they're an on-premise customer, whether they're a SaaS customer, we'll make some trial environments available for those that take part as part of that mini event that we do in February. Another question, there's two questions that kind of very similar, talking about obviously Aviator and the reliance currently on OpenText Public Cloud, and asking about fully on-prem based deployments. It is something that we are looking at as part of our overall plans with Aviator. but we have no timescales on when that may be available right now. It's something that's part of our future roadmap plans. So I would like to see us potentially look at it by the end of 2025 and hopefully a lot sooner than that. But stay tuned. It is something that we are actively looking at on how we can accommodate as we go forward. All right. And I did see, I think it was another one that I saw related to Aviator, just double checking. No, I think I got all them ones on the Aviator side, so that's those covered. Okay, I think that's most of the questions, Steve, unless there's any that you wanted to pick up.
I'm still learning this new Q&A interface. I think we answered most of them in the Q&A panel, so of course feel free to follow up with us if you need additional information. So I guess the one thing I haven't seen anybody comment on is what might be. Oh, I see one kind of related comment. What deeper dive sessions? Which of these topics would be most interesting for a deeper dive topic? I see one comment about demos around the onboarding bundle, especially as it's integrated with the XECM widget and SuccessFactors integration. So maybe that's something we could do as part of a future user group, is go through a more extended demo of that review and of the employee onboarding. We'll see if we can fit that into the schedule.
All right. Sounds good, Steve. As I said, I thought I'd share my screen about just to close out today's session then. So hopefully you found this release readiness session really useful. Loads of really amazing stuff that the team have put together. We're really quite pleased with everything that's been done for this release. We'll be coming back with our next SMUG session in November, which will be on November the 13th, virtually, of course. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the features that we've highlighted today. Maybe a couple of features we maybe not have given much time to, with some demos and a bit more of a deep dive into them, as well as our usual latest product news and updates that we're going to be doing as part of those SMUG sessions. The link to register, it's on the screen, but we've made it. I don't think we can share that in the Q&A panel, but it is available on the current SMAX user group. So if you use the tiny.cc/SMUG, and SMUG being all in capital letters, or go to the community pages under SMAX Learn, you'll find the links to register there as part of it, and you'll be able to see register for the next SMUG session in November, on November the 13th. And with that, we'll close out today. Thank you ever so much for joining us on today's session. We appreciate you all taking the time to learn everything that's new. Thank you.
Yes, definitely appreciate you taking a big chunk of your day today to spend it with us. Thank you for attending or watching the recording.